Hello friends, I am Muhammad Ali and this is a South Korean family. As you can see, the son is so much taller than his parents, and now mind you, this is not just a story of this South Korean family's house. In fact, this has become a very common trend in South Korea, where children are on an average minimum 4 to 6 inches taller than their parents, and all this in a very short period of time. Now, we also saw such rapid growth in the Netherlands. It was also seen in the people of the Netherlands, as you may know. But behind that, we had scientific explanations that it was the result of good nutrition and genetics. But in the case of South Korea, on the other hand, the most mind-blowing thing is that the main reason behind their rapid growth is quite weird and controversial. That is, their obsession and madness about height. Now, how does obsession grow height? I will tell you the answer to this later. But before that, let's first find out why being short in South Korea is a very traumatizing experience, and why the people of South Korea are so obsessed with looking tall. Well, in 2009, a female guest was invited to a talk show of the Korean broadcasting system, and one of the guests openly gave a controversial statement: all men below 180 centimeters are losers. In fact, only a few years after this, in 2019, when South Korea's multinational company Ipsos announced the ideal height, they conducted a survey on men. Then it was found that 70% of South Korean females prefer tall men, whose height is approximately 5 feet 10 in chesto, 6 feet 1 inch. That is, if you look at it, in South Korean society, being short in height is a social stigma, and because of this social stigma, over time, their obsession with the height of malice increased, and because of this obsession, they have started to increase their height in some unnatural ways, and because of this obsession, they have started to increase their height in some unnatural ways, and because of this obsession, they have started to increase their height in some unnatural ways. Now, how did they do it exactly? Well, some very risky drugs, like artificial, that is, human growth hormone injections. Now, what is HGH, and can it artificially increase the height of 6 to 7 inches? Well, human growth hormone is the primary hormone that is responsible for height growth in humans. It is produced by the pituitary gland, and is converted into IGF-1 in the liver and through it. It triggers cartilage formation in the ends of long bones. These cartilage cells are like the bricks of a building that are later calcified and converted into bones. And in this way, everyone's height naturally increases. But if this HGH hormone is artificially created in the lab and injected in the growing ages, then the speed of height growth can be increased from 2x to 3x. And in advanced and rich countries like South Korea, this treatment is completely normalized. Now, apart from this, there is another treatment, which is very controversial and is gaining popularity. According to me, this treatment should be borderline illegal. I will tell you about it in a little while. But because of this, if you look at the famous singers and K-pop artists of South Korea, they are very tall and attractive than the average Korean. In fact, because of keeping such high international beauty standards, these artists are very famous in India as well. And more than 25% of Indians are even there. And they are big fans. But apart from their attractive looks, unlike many Bollywood movies, the plot of their films is very unique. And especially if you like dark, suspense, thriller movies, then you will not find a plot twist like K-dramas in any other movie. The only problem here is that most of their movies are in Korean language, and that's why Indians can't watch those movies, even if they want to, but not anymore. And now coming back to the topic, we were talking about the South Korean height obsession, because of which, at the age of 9 to 16, the youth inject artificial growth hormones into the body so that they can artificially increase their height. This is the data, which will clearly tell you the whole story. That in the last 4 years alone, in South Korea, the market for these growth hormones has doubled. Like just to give you a yardstick, the US which is a cosmetic-focused market with high spending power, is 3 times more than that. And according to the report of the Korean pharmaceutical company, Donghae Co. Limited, the sale of growth hormone is increasing by 30% every year since 2019. But there is a big problem in this therapy. This therapy benefits only those people who take it before their growth plates are fused. That is, in their teenage years. For 18 to 19 years, a person's long bone growth plates are fused and become permanently bone. And that's why they can't have cartilage formation. And a person gets stuck in their final height. That is, height cannot be increased by growth hormone treatment. And here, without looking for any other way, bearing the societal pressure, many South Koreans become desperate. To add that extra 2 to 4 inches to their height, they even adopt some very brutal methods. Now, this method in particular is so cruel that in some countries, it is even illegal. I am talking about limb lengthening surgery, which in simple words is to break the bones of your legs, connect them back and make them longer. And this is a very expensive and painful procedure. And if there are complications, it can even kill you. In the first stage of this operation, surgeons perform osteotomy on the patient's shin bone, that is, the tibia. Simply speaking, a rod is added to them by breaking both these bones. Then, after 10 days of adding the rod, the second stage of this surgery begins. In this, doctors or family members consciously twist and turn this rod for 2 months every day to adjust it, so that the broken bones of the patient can go away from each other, and between the bones, a gap is created. Then, as soon as 2 months pass, this device is removed, and from here, the third and last stage begins, which is healing. Now, due to this cut, bone fracture occurs, and that is why the body stimulates the bone healing process, which in that place, in that gap, generates new bone cells, due to which the height eventually increases, and according to current surveys, drugs and surgery are the 2 main reasons, due to which the height of South Koreans increased by almost 6 inches in the last 100 years. But friends, still, this is not the entire picture. When I was reading the history of growth hormone drugs, I saw that these drugs were mostly introduced in the South Korean markets for the first time in 1985. But the height graph of South Korea, as you can see here, tells a different story. It clearly shows that the height of South Korean chad started to increase a bit for 1985. So, what were these people doing before in 1985? Duetto, which their height had started to increase. And you'll be surprised to know that after the height of South Koreans increased, the end of World War -1 also a major reason. Actually, until World War II, South and North Korea were the same country. But after World War II, the US took over the southern part of Korea, and the Soviet Union, on the other hand, took over the northern part. But the ideology of both these countries was key different from each other, and that's why in the 1950s, the Soviet Union led North Korea, attacked South Korea and started Korean War. In this war, almost all the prosperous Korean cities were completely destroyed, due to which 2.5 million people died. But because of the US forces, the Soviet Union couldn't invade the southern part of Korea. And because of this war, North Korea and South Korea became two permanent new countries. Now, this Korean War completely destroyed the supply chains of South Korea. They didn't have any proper raw materials for production. And in such a situation, South Korea became dependent on its primary source of food, which was rice, and due to the increase in rice consumption, South Koreans' height has decreased. Now, how did this happen? Well, let me explain. Well, as we had already known about the process, of increasing height, the pituitary gland releases human growth hormone, which in turn sends a signal to the liver to secrete the IGF-1 hormone. Then this IGF-1 hormone stimulates the growth of bones and tissues and increases our height. But in the case of South Koreans, due to the increase in their rice consumption, 80% of their diet is made up of carbohydrates, because rice is mostly made up of carbohydrates. Now, what happens because of excess carbohydrates? The blood sugar level increases, and then, to control this, the pancreas releases a hormone called insulin. Now, why is this insulin a problem? Because when this is secreted, it gives a signal to the liver to stop the production of IGF-1. And if IGF-1 production stops in the body, then how can IGF-1 give a signal to the growth of bones and tissues in the body? And this was the reason the height of South Koreans was getting stunted, but not for too long, because after a few years after the end of the war, their height started to increase again. After the Korean War, America helped South Korea provide them with economic and military support. Because of this, South Korea started to become economically stable. The stability of South Korea started to modernize and develop. This also affected their education and health sectors. Because of this development, the economy of South Korea was boosted, and the biggest impact of this was on the early lifestyle. The result of this can be seen in these three graphs. As soon as South Koreans' rice consumption decreased, meat consumption increased. So, as meat consumption increased, their height automatically increased. Now, how does height increase correlate with meat consumption? There are a lot of research papers on this, but let me tell you referring to the research paper of the World Book 2016. In this research paper, a study was published in height of 105 countries. This study also drew the same conclusion that there is a fundamental reason being the increasing height of people, increase in meat production, protein-rich diet. So, in this study, basically, a scientist of Mississippi State University, Joseph Chromiak, did a detailed research on amino acids made from protein. He took people from different groups and increased their protein intake. For a few days, the same process continued. After repeating this process, he found that among these people, 3 important amino acids, arginine, lysine, and ornithine, increased in the body. And according to many studies, these 3 amino acids increased the secretion of growth hormone. This concluded that these proteins play a major role in our growth. So, all in all, friends, just to summarize it all, as we saw, there are 3 major factors behind the increase in height: drugs, surgery, and economic boost. But, 1 second, if the economy is a major factor, which is why the height of South Koreans increased in the initial years, then, with this logic, India is the 5th largest economy. But, according to many articles, India's average height is decreasing to South Korea. Well, why is this happening? When we did research on this, it came to light that India's protein intake is very low than that of other countries. And this is the reason the height of Indians is decreasing gradually. Diet is very important if you want to reach your true genetic potential. For example, genetically, if your height is 5 feet 10, but if you don't get proper nutrition, proper protein, then you might very well end up somewhere near 5'8", whereas your potential was 5 feet 10. So, it becomes very important to increase. Just like diet is important, the same way environmental factors also play a role. Lifestyle also plays a role. In fact, animals also have similar patterns. Like for example, if we talk about extinctness, some dinosaurs have grown 6 times taller because they eat so. Some dinosaurs have ground high oxygen content during that period. Now, how are the 3 eras of dinosaurs? Triassic, Jurassic, and Cretaceous. How did dinosaurs evolve? How was the environment at that time? What was their food? If you have a question, comment below. If you have any question, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel for more interesting Tintin videos. Also, see you next time. Stay curious, Keep learning and keep growing.